Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike at Filmboy24, and today we're going to talk about something that I pretty much built a YouTube channel around, and that's short ends, recans, and just overall expired film, and we're going to talk about the realities of it. So in the interest of full disclosure, this video was supposed to be something different, and it turned into a sort of an expired film video. And I'll tell you why really quick, and it's a sad story, but my favorite film stocks, movie film stocks of all time, are 50D and 7231 plus X, black and white. So there's a color and a black and white. So it was no surprise when I saw some plus X 7231 for sale on eBay. I jumped on it, and they were 200-foot reels, and I was super excited. I got them at an enormously good deal. And just a couple days ago, I spooled one down to 100-footers, and I put it in my CP16, and I set it up right there where my Canon is right now. And I did a little segment with some audio into my little Tascam, and I was going to do a fun little here's my favorite film, and I'm going to sync it up with some audio and blah bitty blue. Well, the reality is it was old expired film, and it came out terrible. I'm going to show you just in a few minutes exactly what happened with that film. Now, the truth behind recans, short ends, and expired film is, if you like playing the lottery, I like doing a scratch-off ticket, you know, one a month maybe. I don't do a lot, but I enjoy a scratch-off ticket, and most of the time I lose. I also enjoy buying old expired film, and some of the times I lose. You see, for me personally, I'm already behind the 8 ball, and I say that because I process and scan all of my own movie film. And what that means is I'm not going to get lab results. And when you process your own film, and it's brand new stock ordered direct from Kodak, you get pretty good results, or you can if you kind of know what you're doing. And I kind of know what I'm doing. So when you get a film stock that's been sitting in somebody's garage for years, and you shoot it, and then you process it yourself, again, already behind the 8 ball. It's a mixed result sort of field. In other words, you can expect your results to be probably about twice as good if you send it to a lab and have them process it and professionally scan it as you get when you do everything yourself. So you can kind of cut that in half again when you use old expired recans or short ends, or, you know, just old junk film. Now, like I said in the intro, I kind of built my whole channel on experimenting with old film. And for one, that's basically because that's all I can afford to do, is experiment with old film. Now, I probably got about 50,000 feet of movie film stored in a deep freezer and in my closets and whatnot. And I'll say that not all of it is junk. I've tested most of it, or a lot of it, and some of it comes out pretty good. Pretty good for me, for my testing and my DIY stuff, and for my channel and having fun, because that's what I do. But again, it's a lottery. You don't know what you're going to get. Let me give you an example. You see your favorite film, and sometimes you might only be able to get your favorite old stock. They don't make my favorite black and white film anymore, 7231, so I might have to wait for an old roll to come up. But my example is, you might see a roll somewhere posted on a website somewhere, or in a forum, or on eBay, or something like that, and it says, been stored in my freezer ever since I've had it. Well, that's fantastic, as long as you're the only one that's ever had it. The seller may not mention that they got it at an estate sale where the guy kept it in his basement or in his attic, you know, in the Keys in Florida for 20 years prior to selling it at an estate sale. So you really never know the overall storage conditions. And I'll tell you right now, that's one of the main factors that go into whether your expired film is going to be a decent stock or just a junk stock. That's storage. Now, I have some stocks, like this old Ektachrome ER 16mm stock. I can tell just by looking at the box itself that it's got some mildew on it, that this film was definitely probably not stored right. It may have been stored in a freezer at one time, taken out of a freezer, stored in a garage. I don't know. We'll find out when I finally get around to shooting it. So what are these kind of stocks good for? Well, for me personally, they're good for my channel. They're good for me and my hobby, because my hobby is shooting film, learning different processes of film, and scanning film. So this is my golf game. If you're not familiar with me or my channel, you know that outside of my family, this is my whole life. I enjoy film so much that I don't mind getting mixed results. For me, it's really good to test cameras, to see if they scratch film. It's good to test film stocks with. It's good to test processes. If I want to try and cross-process a film, if I want to process an E6 film in C41 just for fun, see what it does, or vice versa, or process it in black and white. I don't want to use up a $40 roll of film, brand spanking new, to do my tests with. So I might as well do it with an old expired roll, because that's what I do. So what I have here is mainly a tiny example of some of the old and expired and short ends and recans that I have accumulated over the years. And like I say, this is a very tiny fraction of what I have. Give you a couple of quick examples. Vision 2 250D. I've shot a lot of this particular batch of film, and you've probably seen it on my channel. It's a great little experimental stock. It's not perfect. It probably wasn't stored well, but it comes out and I get some decent colors out of it, and I get some good sharpness out of it. So overall, I'm glad I got this film really cheap. I think it was $8 or $10 a roll for a bunch of it, like 60 or 80 rolls. So I jumped on that, and that's perfect for an experimental guy like me. I have a lot of these little, this is 8mm, an old Kinolux 8mm film. And this is what I mean by recan. A recan is simply, on a lot of film shoots, what the assistant or the magazine loader would do is they would load up 4 or 5 film magazines. They would have those magazines ready. They would mark them with what film is inside, so that they didn't waste a lot of time after they finished 400 feet of film, loading it up and shooting it again. If you have the luxury of having 4 or 5 magazines, you would have a loader fill them up for you. So if you're done with your film shoot, or if you're done for the day, or if you're done with that particular type of film stock, those particular scenes, and you had a couple of magazines that were still loaded up, you would take the film out of the magazine, unshot, and put it back in the original can. And that would be called a recan. This is an example of some old 72-77 film. This was an old color film that they took the entire 400 feet out of the magazine, put it back in here, put gaffer's tape around the edge, and typically what they do is they'll write what the date is that they put it back in the can, what kind of film it is, and then they usually would initial it, who put the film back in the can. This particular one here was reloaded back in the can in 2000. So this film's 22 years old. I haven't opened it yet, haven't messed with this particular roll. I'll get to it eventually. This is the exact same type of film, 72-77. That's a 320T, an old original Vision stock. But this is an example of just an expired roll. See, it's still factory sealed, was just never taken out of the can and never used. Again, no idea how it was stored. I know I got this really cheap. I got this one really cheap. Different times, different places. I don't remember where. But I won't get it unless I get it relatively cheap. So we'll find out one of these days, years. I keep this stored in my temperature-controlled house at about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the best I can do. If you've ever been to my house, and my good buddy Travis has, he's seen I have a deep freezer. It's completely full to the top. I couldn't even fit this in with old film already. An example of a short end would be something like this. This was from a movie called Alive, and it's not the classic horror movie Alive. An old roll is 72-93. Now, a short end is different than a recan. See, a recan is supposed to never have been attached to the camera. Usually it's taken directly back out of the magazine. And they have to call it a recan, well, first and foremost, because they're resealing it, and you'll know that it's not factory sealed for the most part. Second, because once film is taken out of the bag, the factory can and black bag, well, now it's exposed to elements. It's not brand new anymore. It's like driving your brand new car off the lot. Not brand new anymore. So they usually mark it recan. Short end is a little bit different. Short end, for this particular, in this case, 280 feet-ish, no way to tell for sure. This film was run through a camera, probably loaded 400 feet in the magazine. 120 feet was run through the camera. They were finished with the scene or this film stock. Pop the magazine off, or open the camera, cut the film, pull the magazine off in the dark, reload the existing unexposed film into a can, do the same type of markings on it, the date, the initial, the type of film, and now it's a 280-foot recan of film. So short ends are probably a little bit more dangerous than recans, because a recan was never attached to the camera. It's one more element to expose your film accidentally to light. So, a risk. There's your lottery. And I have lots of examples of different, this is a recan. What I typically do, and I'll show you really quickly, and by the way, everything on this desk here is is sort of examples of different expired stocks that I have. You may have heard me mention my single 8 adventures. Well, I shot 2 rolls of single 8. This film expired sometime in the mid-70s, both of these, R200 and R50. Here's the cartridges. Sad to say, that's an example of I didn't win on that lottery ticket because they came out awful. Very underexposed, no contrast. It was a disaster. I'm going to get to some single 8 eventually, but that's definitely not the way. I was going to base a video around it and show the Z2, the Fujica Z2. Not going to do it yet because that came out awful. Anyway, back to this. What I usually do when I get a recan or a short end is I have my white box here, and I'll open it in my darkroom, and I'll take it out of the bag if it's in one, and I'll take a double black bag. I'll take about 4 feet of it off the end, snip it, snip about 2 inches off of that. I'll take the 4 foot of film, wind it, put it in a black bag, roll the black bag, put it in another dark bag, take my little 2-inch piece and tape it to the bag, and then I'll label a can number, and I'll write a unique number, like this one is TS3, this particular can. That's just test strip number 3. And then on the bag, I'll also write TS3, so when it's time to test this short end, I'll just run a tiny little bit of it through a camera, 4 or 5 feet through a camera, process it, and see what I get. That gives me some idea of kind of where I'm at with that particular roll of film. It may be a little more than 4 feet. It's probably more like 6 feet. And then again, I process it, see where I'm at, but I have a whole bunch of these in here that are kind of set to just go through a camera real quick and process and see what we got. That gives me, again, some idea whether or not I got a good lottery ticket or a bad one. Very quickly, I'm going to give you my personal pros and cons to short ends, recans, and expired film. First and foremost, the most obvious pro to buying this type of film is the price. A 400-foot roll of film, brand spanking new Vision 3 stock, is around $240 if you order it from Kodak. If you can get a recan 400-foot or an old expired 400-foot roll, or even a short end that's close to, between 300 and 400 feet, if you can get that for, 75, 80 bucks, that's a deal. To me, that's worth it, for me personally. So one of my biggest pros to this kind of film is the price. Usually you can get Super 8 film really cheap. Hit and miss with a lot of this stuff. Old Ektachrome, Kodachrome is definitely a hit and miss, mostly miss. A lot of black and white stuff, usually you can get pretty good results out of still. Black and white, old film, especially when you have unknown storage, holds up so much better than old color film. Black and white film, usually you'll get some kind of a decent image, or some kind of an image, period. The next pro for me is it's great for testing. And not just testing cameras, but for me personally, for testing processes. Like this film here, if I want to test it, I can shoot this roll. I could shoot 2 or 3 of these rolls. I can try processing it in different developers, different times, different temperatures. I can try reversal. I can try negative. There's a bunch of different ways you can process films. Oh, and also your camera. I don't know, does my new camera scratch film? Well, let me get a $10 cartridge or $15 cartridge to test and see if my camera scratches film. The last pro that I would say for this is it's good for experimental filmmaking. Just good old-fashioned, I don't know how it's going to come out, be great for, you know, music video has always kind of been the fallback for crappy-looking film. It's almost an accepted practice to shoot a music video and make it look crappy. I'm sorry, but that's the truth behind it. And I'm no different. I think it kind of works. So anytime you want to shoot some experimental type of film, an experimental horror film or a music video or any kind of experimental visual art, here you go. Short ends, recans, expired film. Now the cons. For me, the cons don't really outweigh the pros, but I'm going to give you a couple. The first is the most obvious, and it's a crapshoot. It really is on what you're going to get. Hit and miss. Mostly it's miss. Sometimes you get a hit. Another con is sort of the opposite of one of the pros. Sometimes you find a film that you really like me, I find a 7231 on eBay or in a forum or something, and it's my favorite film. They don't make it anymore, so I gotta pay extra, I gotta pay more, and I think a lot of people like that film. So price can be a con if you're not careful. And the last thing that I would say is probably a con would be, and this is mainly just for me, is it becomes addicting. Like I said earlier in the video, I probably got 50,000 feet of movie film, and about 45,000 of it is old recans or expired or short ends. Mostly it's just expired. I have a lot less recans and short ends than I do just factory cans of expired film. So it can become a sort of a, you know, my name is Mike and I have a problem with film collecting. So if you consider that a con, well, there you go. So the last thing I want to say is I want to give you a couple of very quick, you settle down, moving around on me, very quick examples of a couple rolls of film, one on one end of the spectrum, one on the other end of the spectrum. Here's a roll of 16mm Vision 2 50D, and you know 50D is my favorite film. But here's a roll that I shot not too long ago. It was in a video, but I'm going to show you a very quick clip. This, and again, bear in mind I home process, so it could be better if I sent it to a lab. But this is what I got from that. So not too bad. Happy with that. I got a whole slew of that, like 60 rolls of that for really cheap. In fact, here it is right here. 7201. It's a Vision 2 stock. Now on the flip side, I just got some of this 7231. Now I love 7231. I'm a plus X fanatic. I like the slow speed of it, the tight grain. Let me show you an example of what I just got from that. The purpose of this, by the way, I have a little timer going here. I only have 100 feet of film inside my camera, so that 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and I just wasted 15 of them. Maybe 2.5 minutes. I got 2 minutes left. I got 2 minutes. I got 2 minutes. Now my wife said, "Oh, it's not so bad. Just, you know, make a video, do that." Yeah, well, my wife's just too friendly. It came out really bad, okay? It's fogged up really bad. I don't know how it was stored. Obviously not great. It's a crapshoot. There's your lottery ticket. You know, the odds are against you when it comes to this kind of film. So, should you get film like this? What if you see a deal? Well, I wouldn't buy stuff like this, Kodachrome. I wouldn't buy that for less than about $5 a box if it's not expired until in the 2000s. Because you're not going to get good results out of that for the most part. Ektachrome, expired Ektachrome, if you're going to buy this kind of stuff, these are the two most popular Super 8 films in the expired realm. If you're going to buy expired Ektachrome, try to find stuff that was expired in the 90s. Anything prior to that, some old EM25 process stuff, not going to come out well. And it's going to cost you a fortune to get it processed unless you do it yourself. So that's all I have for you today. Yes, buy some of this expired stuff, the short ends, the recans. If you just want to have fun and get some crazy, zany, unexpected results, that's what I do here. You very well know that. You know it. Yeah. My neighbor's cousins, best friends, sisters, their mailman's hairdresser. I mean, he even knows that. So should be no surprise to you. If you enjoy videos and breakdowns like this, do me a super solid. Yeah, it's right there. I do it on every video. Tap the like button for me. If you would, if you feel like I've earned it and you want to see more goofiness like this, hit the subscribe button. You'll enjoy it, I promise. You'll come back day in and day out, or at least once a week-ish, and check out a goofy video. I got a very cool video coming out. I processed a 70-year-old roll of 16mm found film. People have been asking about some 16mm found film. I mainly do, Super 8 because that's what's more abundant. But I happened upon an old roll. It was shot in 1952, I believe. And it's a roll film. It's in a it's not a magazine. I don't have one sitting here, but it's in a roll, which is unusual because usually those have been exposed millions of times. People open the camera, they open the can, whatever. Didn't come out too awful terrible. So I'm excited. The film was shot 70 years ago. I'm going to show you that next. Stay tuned, hit subscribe, you'll see it. And until the very next time that I see each and every one of you stunningly gorgeous people, especially you. Yep, there it is. That's goofy, but that's me. I'll see all of you on the very next go-around.